me start by saying this gently, because if this is you, you've already carried enough. If you were the child who felt everything, if you were called too sensitive, too emotional, or too intense, if you grew up feeling older than your years, yet somehow unseen, if you learned to read a room before you learned how to rest, this video is for you. And I want you to hear this clearly before we go any further. There was never something wrong with you. You didn't imagine it. You didn't exaggerate it. You didn't cause it. You felt it because you could. Many spiritually sensitive people are born into families that feel chaotic, emotionally unsafe, or deeply unbalanced. Not because they are weak, but because they are aware, and awareness changes everything. You see, sensitivity is not fragility. It's a finely tuned nervous system. It's perception, it's attunement. Sensitive people don't just hear words, they feel tone. They feel tension, they feel what's said without being said. And in families where emotions are avoided, denied, or buried, that sensitivity becomes a mirror. Here's something we're rarely taught. Unprocessed emotional pain doesn't disappear. It transfers pain that isn't felt, is passed on, as silence as anger, as control as emotional absence, as unpredictability. And children don't need to understand what's happening to feel it. They feel it in their bodies first. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung spoke about this beautifully. He said that what remains unconscious in us does not vanish. It lives on, shaping our lives from beneath the surface. In other words, what isn't faced gets lived out, often through the most sensitive person in the system. And that's usually the child who asks questions, the one who notices patterns, the one who feels the emotional weight of the room, the one who senses when something is off, even when everyone else pretends it isn't. That child isn't the problem. They're the truth holder. If you grew up feeling responsible for other people's emotions, if you learned to stay quiet to keep the peace, if you became the listener, the mediator, the strong one, if you felt like you had to grow up too fast, that wasn't your imagination. That was adaptation. Sensitive children often become emotional regulators. They don't choose the role. They step into it because no one else will. They learn to soothe others before themselves. They learn to sense danger early. They learn to survive through awareness. And later in life, they wonder why they're exhausted, why rest feels unsafe, why guilt appears the moment they choose themselves. Stay with me, because this next part matters. This isn't about blaming parents, and it's not about rewriting the past. It's about understanding something vital. Most parents did not choose their emotional limitations. They inherited them. They were once children too, in families that didn't teach them how to feel safely. That doesn't excuse harm, but it explains transmission. And understanding breaks confusion. Jung believed that consciousness is the first step toward freedom, not confrontation, not punishment, not resentment, awareness. When something becomes conscious, it no longer controls us from the shadows. And this is where many spiritually sensitive people get stuck. They confuse understanding with obligation. They think, if I understand where the pain came from, I have to keep enduring it. But that's not true. Understanding brings choice, not self-betrayal. You can understand your parents' wounds without continuing to live inside them. You can have compassion without sacrificing your nervous system. You can love from a distance and still be a deeply loving person. Sensitivity was never meant to trap you. It was meant to wake you. But first, it had to show you the truth. In part 2, we're going to talk about how to release the role you were never meant to carry, how boundaries can be an act of love, and how freedom comes not from cutting people off in anger, but from finally standing rooted in yourself. Stay with me, because this is where liberation begins. By the time many spiritually sensitive people reach adulthood, they don't just carry their own emotions. They carry the atmosphere of their childhood, the unsaid words, the unresolved grief, the tension that lived in the walls, the responsibility that was never spoken, but always felt. And somewhere along the way, they learned something quietly dangerous, that their worth came from holding everything together. You may recognize this, being the one who calms situations down, the one who understands everyone's side, the one who absorbs discomfort so others don't have to feel it, the one who feels guilty for needing space, or rest, or distance. This is the role many sensitive people were shaped into, not because they chose it, but because they were capable of it. But here's the truth, and it may land softly or it may land hard. You were never meant to be the emotional container for an entire family system. That was too much for a child, and it's too much for an adult. Carl Jung spoke about how healing does not come from fixing others, but from withdrawing unconscious projections, from returning responsibility to where it belongs. In simple terms, what is not yours does not need to be carried by you. This is where boundaries enter the conversation. And I want to be very clear here because boundaries are often misunderstood. Boundaries are not punishment. They are not cruelty. They are not rejection. Boundaries are clarity. They say, this is where I end and you begin. This is what I can hold and what I cannot. This is what allows me to remain loving without disappearing. For spiritually sensitive people, boundaries are not walls. They are roots. They allow you to stand steady without being pulled apart by other people's unresolved pain. And here's something else that needs to be said, especially for those who carry guilt. You are allowed to wish people well, without staying close enough to be harmed by them. You are allowed to step back, without becoming bitter. You are allowed to choose peace, without needing anyone's permission. Many sensitive people fear that if they stop holding everyone else up, everything will fall apart. But the truth is, what falls apart was never yours to hold, and what is real remains. This is often the moment when grief surfaces. Not grief for what happened, but grief for what never was. The parent you needed, the safety you didn't receive, the space to just be a child. If that grief comes, let it. Grief is not weakness. It's the nervous system finally exhaling. Freedom does not come from cutting ties in anger. And it doesn't come from forcing forgiveness before the body is ready. Freedom comes from release. From setting others free from the version of you they expected, so that you can finally be who you are. And in doing so, you set yourself free. This is the quiet power of spiritually sensitive people. Not dominance, not control, not superiority, but consciousness. Awareness that says, I see the pattern, and it ends here, with love, not resentment. If you've lived this, if you've carried this, if you're only now beginning to understand yourself, I want you to hear this and let it land fully. You were never broken. You were perceptive in a world that didn't know how to feel. And now, you are allowed to live differently. Thank you for staying with me. And if this spoke to something deep inside you, you're not alone, even if it felt that way for a long time. This is not the end of your story. It's the moment you step out of survival and into sovereignty. Please like, AMD subscribe. It helps the algorithm push this video out to people who need it. As always, this has been Valkyrie. Thanks for stopping by. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.